Okay, for the first part, I wanted to discuss the UDL Guideline 4.1, vary the methods for response and navigation. After reading this blurb down here, to summarize that, I would say that varying the methods for response and navigation are just providing alternatives for students based on their motor demands. So say someone can't hold a pencil, then they can use voice to text. Um, Another option would be mouse control. I've seen one of the assistive technologies that I've seen is the individual can hold a pen in their mouth and use a device to make the shapes of letters with the pen in their mouth, and then it would relay that letter to the computer. And one example I have of using this in the classroom would be Jamboard. It's free, it's on Google, mostly positive reviews. The only downside to Jamboard is if you were to send out this link and have students use this as a whole group and they're all on this at one time, it could crash and become very laggy and almost chaotic. So this would be important to send individually, or if you had a small group of students, it should be manageable. But when I've used this in my classes, this has not been an issue. As you can see here, I wrote, like, the students are supposed to identify solid, liquid, or gas. And right here, I've chosen the pen option. You go over to the side. The background's black, so you'd want to use white. I clicked on white, and it let me write the word gas. It does take a lot of practice to learn how to form the letters. It might be easier with a actual mouse instead of a laptop touchpad, which is an easy fix. You can plug those into the side of your computer. And then for identifying the rock, which would be a solid, the student can come over to the side and they can click on the sticky note. In this function, they can change the color, they can have no color. We'll just stick with yellow. And then they can type in that the rocks are a solid. So they save it, you click cancel so you don't make another one, and then you drag it down. And then the last feature would be adding a text box. The student can draw a text box, make sure the text is white, and then they would say this is a liquid. Alright, so this application had me thinking of how I could incorporate my students who are blind, and that would go along with the UDL checkpoint 4.2, optimize access to tools and assistive technologies. So you can see here on this Jamboard, it's going to be very difficult for a student who is blind to navigate. So a simple solution to this would be giving the student options of solids, liquids, or gas. Gas might be tricky with this application, so you could find another use for it. But to identify a solid or a liquid, you could go ahead and download the app TapTapSee. And TapTapSee is an assistive technology for the blind and visually impaired. As you can see on the side here, let me refresh the page. It's a very easy to use app. So the individual would line the phone up, double tap to take their picture, and it says picture 1 in progress. Then it says red ceramic cup, and it reads that it is a red ceramic cup. So to provide an alternative for this lesson, you could put a cup of water in front of the student. It would say a glass full of water. And then a solid, you could put a pencil in front of the student, and they would double tap, take a picture, and it would tell them it was a solid. TapTapSee also is rated very high, and it doesn't have very many negative reviews, except for, let's say there might be too much detail in a picture. and then it might get overwhelmed and read too much and overanalyze the image. Or the opposite end of that is that it's too vague. So it would say, um, let's say there was a box in front of someone, it would just say there was a square box in front, which is fine, but the student is not going to know what that box has to do with them. It doesn't say what it is, like if it was an Amazon box or something like that. But overall, I do plan on using both of these devices or something similar because technology is going to continue to advance, but I do see these as great tools in my classroom in the future.